Okay, so welcome everyone, and welcome to this new meetup from the HPE Developer Community. We'll be talking about implementing a complete workshop on demand infrastructure today in less than an hour. Along with me is Bruno Cornec, who's a former HPE Linux Distinguished Technologist and who's one of the main contributor of the Workshop on Demand project. So before we get started, and we'll wait a few minutes to get people coming in. Obviously, I can see the numbers are increasing. And as usual, we have to go through a bit of housekeeping items as usual. So obviously, this is a meetup, and it's all about the developer community skill-up possibilities, among which the meetup is one. Obviously, you will see that because of some departure from our former colleague in the name of Didier Lally and Denis Choukroun, the developer community as it exists now has less people, less resources, and so we have to somehow change the scheduling in terms of skill up events. So when there used to be, several meetup, Munch and Learn and AI Jam in a month, there will be only one per month now. This will become, meetup will become bi-monthly series. Okay, they will stick to the core of the thing, which is in depth on the technology, whether it's been open source development and other possible technologies. So there is already the next session that is being actually planned for February, and it will be hosted by one of our colleagues from Aruba, Alvin Castro, and you'll be talking about the Aruba Postman collection around CX, I believe, and it will be the updated version of this collection, and you'll be talking about it. In January, before attending this new meetup in February, there will be a mention learn that we managed to plan as well, and that will be handed by Vandervili Silva and Roman Nasiwan. And this will be about, working smarter and all about natural language access to your infrastructure via GreenLake MCP. And so be prepared. I mean, the registration link should come up either before Christmas or very early in January. Regarding the AI Jam series, that we introduced last year, well, we're in discussion with some of the people from AI. So I hope to come back to you with a new agenda on this topic as well. But there are discussions, so there will be some new things coming in. Don't worry. Obviously, the Skill Up is not only meetups and events, there are also the workshops on demand. They are still existing, and obviously we'll be discussing this matter very precisely today. But we're still having some workshops going on. I did a bit of cleanup in there, and I'm working with some of new, I would say, people in HP in the name of the Morpheus, for instance, and some other stuff, trying to get some new workshops getting in. So that's an ongoing process, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, as a community, we still need you we need your help to amplify and contribute. So invite the people from pre-sales, inside the company, or invite your customers. I mean, everyone is welcome to join. You can join either through the newsletter, you can join on our Slack channels. And I'm pretty sure that Mathieu Losmed, who's the 50 other remaining % of the community in France, will help me out in copy-pasting the link in the chat as I'm talking about them. So as I said, you can join through the newsletter. You can join our Slack channels. Whether you could be an SME, a subject matter expert on a given subject. Well, we'll be very happy to welcome your blogs. I mean, you probably saw that recently there has been a few additions. So I'm taking over some of the responsibilities of Denis that I would like to thank here if he's here on publishing the blogs. And so there are already a few blogs that came in from Morpheus people. There are still people from Chapel who are providing regular content. Lionel Julien from the Computer BU also provided a very interesting blog lately. So please have a go and check out these things. Regarding workshops, well, I'll be very happy to welcome anybody either in the open source project or in HPE to actually help us out in building up some new content. So if you have some ideas on a given subject, well, feel free to contact us. In summary, well, these are all the different assets and how you can link to them. If you have a presentation on any given subject, well, you can use this slide, sorry, and talk about the dev community to your customers, your partners, your colleagues as well. And this is how you can contact us through Slack, through the monthly newsletter. You can send an email through X with the tweet with the HPE developer handle, and also through the workshops on demand. So we're on time, I believe. Yes, I think I did good. So let's get started now with the proper thing of the meetup. So along with me is Bruno Cornec, with his wonderful penguin T-shirt on himself. Very proud. As I said, he's a former distinguished Linux technologist. So he's been in HP for quite some time, and in the last year before retirement, he's still working on this project with me. And so, well, I'm very happy to have him aboard, and he'll be helping me out in presenting this session. The agenda is fairly simple. I mean, we'll be giving you a bit of background on the workshops on demand, from where does it come and where it will go, hopefully. And then we'll move on directly to a live deployment. So, and we hope to get everything ongoing and the deployment within 20 minutes. That's the goal. I mean, we should have a live environment going on in less than 20 minutes. That's what we're planning. We'll be talking about the architecture and communication that are in place in the solution. And obviously, Q&A are more than welcome, either at the end of the session. And if you have burning questions, well, the Q&A is here to help you out. So Mathieu will be monitoring and Bruno will be monitoring them. And if you have really burning questions, we'll speak them out. Really, that's the point. So the workshops on demand, a bit of background. Really, I mean, I've been in the company for the last 25 years, nearly, yeah. And I've been doing pre-sales, and tech enablement for all along my career. And I've been doing trainings on top tools, on compact HPSIM, on HPSIM and cloud system, and many different solutions from HPE. And usually what we were doing is that we were having, PDF on one screen. If you attended some Tech Jam or TSS or other HP events, you would have known this kind of way of working. You would have one desktop where you would do a remote connection onto a given system or connect to a web browser. And on the other side, you would have your PDF and you would copy paste, instruction from one to another. And really, that's how you would do things. And somehow we moved away from this. I mean, back in 2019, yeah, I believe, when somebody came to us and said, well, Jupyter Notebooks could be a good alternative to this crappy PDF that you copy paste, invisible characters, and you can't get anything to get working properly in a PTTY session. So we listened to this and we came out with a simple, Jupyter Notebooks, a Jupyter Hub server at the beginning. And from this, we moved on to an open source project over the year because we introduced, this single server when we had it then later on some registration portal. And with this came along the API and the PostgreSQL database in the middle. So it became, a single playbook from Ansible that was allowing us to copy some content into the Jupyter Notebook, into the Jupyter Hub server, to the given students that we would have on this machine, to something that is a multi-tier application now and that is open source. I mean, we validated through the OSRB process. I mean, that was probably 2 years ago, I believe, Bruno, I think.
Yes, something like that, yeah.
Around this time frame.
Maybe 3 years now.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And it really took us 3 years to went from, I would say, kind of alpha to something that we have now, a 1.01 version, I believe, in GitHub. Yeah. That's the detail that we have added lately on this. And so we have a dedicated repo on GitHub now, and you can browse to it and you will see that the content is here and it's available for everyone who is willing to actually build up a training, a training infrastructure, so to call it, that is dedicated to anything that can be handled by a Jupyter Notebook, a Jupyter Hub Notebook. So for those who are not familiar with Jupyter, well, it's really a single frame type of application on the browser, and that allows you to run at the very same time some code snippets, as well as embedding some markdown, allowing you to provide instruction to the user. So this is mainly used, obviously, in the AI environment for people who are doing, trainings and data modeling and data visualization. Sorry, but we somehow tweaked it to use it as a proper training facility, not only for AI focus training, but for everything. I mean, the dev community is all about software and API and automation. So providing that the Jupyter Hub is having a very long list of kernels, allowing you to have multiple type of engine, understanding this as, it could be simple Bash or SSH, could be Ansible, it could be Java, it could be Python, it could be PowerShell, and so on. So all this is allowing you to actually build up some training material fairly easily. Now, let's move to the demo itself. And again, feel free to ask questions. And as I said, Bruno and Mathieu will be monitoring. And if there are some burning points, then we'll be trying to answer them live. So we will say that now we should have 45 minutes left. So let's start the chronometer and the time bomb. And hopefully now we will jump to the live deployment. And I will try to show you fairly easily. Whoops, here you go. Fairly easily from what do we have. So as I said, we have this GitHub repo, okay, on which we have, and Bruno and I been working on this documenting the project. I mean, building up a proper admin guide. I mean, I've been writing some blogs over the years on the project, and these blogs finally made it as a proper documentation and a proper admin guide for anyone who's willing to install and build up its own workshops on demand infrastructure. So as you can see, and as I said, really what is important to us is this repo, and the repo itself is containing multiple repos, among which you will see the word notebooks that contain the notebooks that are each of them being, one training class, I would say. The front end is the registration portal, really where you connect to and you register for a given workshop, and the automation kicks in and allows you to later connect to the Jupyter notebook itself. Sorry, the API DB is the place where the Postgres and the API server will reside, and it will register the information about the notebooks, about the customers or the attendees. We'll dive into this later on. The backend is the Jupyter Hub server. And this repo is the very one that is interesting to us, the word install one, because this is the one that Bruno created lately, allowing us to perform a proper installation on the different layers, being the Jupyter Hub, the backend, or the API DB server in the middle, or the front end on the front end side. And they have a common ground of installation, but we'll detail this really later. So for the demo itself, I have a few PTTY sessions that we will now open, okay? And I will try to show you very quickly. Okay, so this represents our somehow a similar approach of our production environment. We have two backend, okay? Because in our environment, you can have multiple Jupyter Hub server to connect to, not only one, but several, and you will define where you want each of the workshops to be deployed. So to start with, normally what you'll have to do is to start with a git remote update, because you have cloned normally, or sorry, I should have started with this. So going back here, you would have cloned, this repo. So you open the repo here, and then, you select whether you want to do SSH or HTTPS, and copy paste to clone the repo. I've already done this action on my full machine, okay? So I don't need to go back to this anymore. But for the sake of I would say the process, normally one admin would normally do is a git remote update on each single machine, okay? And then a git rebase, okay, to make sure that we're good. Oh, sorry,
Without E.
Okay, as usual, big fingers. Okay, we can see here that we're in version 1.101, as I stated earlier on. Okay, I'll be doing the very same thing here with no typo if I can. I should have copy pasted, but okay, relocate phase. Okay, we'll make sure that we'll be very clean on every single machine. Okay. Okay. Oops, wrong window. So that was on the other one. Okay, so now we're good. You can see that I'm already in the repo. I'm in the proper directory. So I do the cd1 install/install. Okay, and from there I can actually call now. Oh, oops, I can call the installation process. So one of the only, I would say, necessity for installing the thing, and I'll be diving this into the detail right after I launch the installation, but you have to do a sudo command to install the thing. The installer, the script install.sh, you can call it with -h to get the details of all the parameters needed for the installation. But here, I will try to very quickly go through this line. So I'm launching the installer. The -a is to define the type of the HPE DB server. So I need to provide his name. Okay. Then the F is for the front end. I mean, that's for the front end that I'll be using, providing its name. The group, that's the group name for that I want. I mean, in our development and in production, we have multiple group in Ansible to actually define whether we're in production, we're in testing, or in dev. So this one is just a made up for the demo. The port that will be used by the postfix environment, the sender for the postfix, and then the backup. T is for the backend. I'm installing a backend here on this machine, and there is two backends, so I need to provide which one is this. Is this the number one or number two? And then I'm installing a backend, and I need to say this is the backend and its name, and that's about it.
Yeah, the -A, F, and B options are for giving the name of the systems that you want to have, and you need to have a correct either etc host or DNS resolver in place so that you are really reaching those systems. So that is work that Frederic has done before, installing those 4 systems, setting the names in the DNS so that everything is ready. And the -T for the type of system you are installing. So on the left-hand side, you install the type backend. On the right-hand side, you will install the type front-end and HPE DB.
Now I launched the, whoops. One that didn't come up properly. Let me read.
Yeah, sometimes there is a leftover apt lock.
So
can you look at the processes and look for 119063? 119.
Oh, right.
Okay. So you can kill it. It's a leftover from a previous install. Or a nightly update, maybe.
Okay. So just for the sake, though, we'll be leaving this running for now. Going back to this, just to show you that, okay, these are the host name. Well, it shouldn't be, but this one shouldn't be running. This one either. For some reason it is. I'm surprised. And this one, okay, maybe I forgot about the nightly check. Okay.
It restarted the services during the night, yes.
Okay, so now it's done because he killed them in the meantime, but yeah.
So believe us, we try to do it important as much as possible. So we remove everything before starting the installation. So anyway, if there was something on the systems, the Jupyter Hub has been removed. The Docker containers use have been stopped and removed as well. and we are starting fresh again each time. So this is based on a lot of Ansible playbooks, and we try to ensure that everything is stopped, removed, erased before installing the new version.
Yeah.
Because we use that process on our side to check that the system is completely operational, and that's part of our continuous integration process, sort of. Except it's not automated yet, that part, but we have everything in place to do it.
Yep. So, moving back to the slides, and so time is running. So as I said, I need to give you a bit more of a background when doing the installation. So in our case, what we did when we did the setup, we focused on simple physical or VM machines, virtual machine. They're running Ubuntu 24.04, LTS. It's minimal, take the minimal server setup and default setup. I mean, it should work with 20 and 22. We tested with the latest, obviously, because we don't have that much time and machine to do, background testing for every single version of the OS. Whenever the VM is ready, with, an IP, a name, host, and you can talk to the other machines, you need to have one single user on the VM that will be used for the deployment. So have a simple account there, providing some sudo privileges, sorry, and that will help you in building up the environment.
Frederic, maybe with regards to security, what we try to do is limit the usage of root to the strict minimum. So you do sudo install because you need to have the script needs to have some privileges to perform some of the initial tasks, but then it calls other scripts using the single user that you have created on the system for the installation. So we drop privileges as soon as we can in order to run all the rest of the operation as the administrator user that is created.
Exactly. In terms of dependencies, when you set up the machine, so you have a Linux, this Ubuntu operating system, and well, you just need to install Git, really, to do the very first git clone command. And from there on, that's all you need, because the installation process, actually, you probably saw some git clone in the screen that I was showing. It'll be cloning all the necessary repos depending on the type of machine you'll be deploying, whether you're a backend or front end or an API DB server. You'll be cloning the necessary repo, and we'll be actually launching again some necessary scripts. So some scripts are common to all of the VMs, and when it comes to, I would say, I'm losing the word, but when it comes to a dedicated environment, it will also call some specific scripts to install Postgres, to run Docker on the API DB server, because this machine it runs some containers and so on and so forth. So depending on what you're installing, really, you start with Git, and then the install script itself will do the necessary build up, installing updates, installing necessary tooling, and so on and so forth. As I said, so as I did during the demo, you need to clone the whole install repository, and this is something you do on every single machine. And then once you specify what type of machine you're installing in the installer, well, you're pretty much done with, because it will take all the parameters of the install command line to actually build up the necessary environment. As I said, go ahead.
Sorry, Frederic. All the parameters that you have seen on the command line are transformed by the scripts into shell variables and Ansible variables that are used throughout all the installation process and later on during the operation. So that's pretty important to have the right parameters at the start, because they are stored in configuration files that are used later on the full stack.
And here's an example, actually, of what an install command line would look like. So in our case, just like I'm showing right now during the demo, it's two backend servers, being B1, B2. They're using port 8010. The API DB server is running on port 10,000, the front end on 8,000. And they're all, running on the local network, really. So the internal Postfix server will be running on port 9,000. The email sender would be mailer at local. and the group name is being test. I mean, the Ansible group name is being test in this case. The management user is Word Manager. So as Word Manager on B1 machine, you would call installer.sh command with -a API db.local on port 2000. Oh, I forgot to, there is a typo here. There shouldn't be two. There's only one quote here. And you specify also whether you want it to be secured or not. So if you want to run HTTPS, you have to specify it on the command line. And same goes for the front end. So -f for the front end with the right naming and the right protocol. The group name, the Ansible group name being test, the user, the sender, Word Manager, the port for postfix, and then the admin is the Word Manager, and the S is the sender, Word Mailer at local. And then defining the backend and also its number and its type. On the second machine, which is a second backend machine, a second Jupyter Hub, the very same goes until the end, where you have to change the name of the backend and the number, the iteration number of the backend. When you're reaching the API DB server, pretty much the same. You still have to specify the very same thing. The only difference is that instead of the type being a backend, it is now an API DB server, the same group, same users, same senders, and so on, and specifying the backend to which the API DB server will be talking to. So you need to specify them by type and by names, being backend, the host name, the second one, the port that they'll be using, and then the type, which is the API DB server. But I think that on this one, there must be another typo because we specified 2-time type, T API DB, and we specified at the beginning, at the end. I think it's a mistake. And the last one being the front end. And there is no mistake on this one, I believe, because I can see that there's only one type front end. And so where you specify again the API DB server, which is needed, its port, the front end name, its port it will be using, the Ansible group name, the port for the postfix, the sender, and the type. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you don't have to go, and as I said, you have the -h for the installer, really, and it should drive you to the point. Now, let's see where we are. So, as you can see on the right-hand side, the API DB server is already done. The front end is also done. And the backend, they're a bit long here because they have a bit more to do. So because we're installing kernels on the backend and different things, so they usually they took longer to install. But the good thing is that we already have 2 machines out of 3. So if I go here and if I refresh now, hopefully I should have a front end that is displaying a catalog now. I hope, at least. Or maybe I was too quick and he's still in the just finished. I didn't check really. So, because sometimes we get tricky. Let me see, what time was it? 17h04.
No, 4:27. It's just finished. So
yeah, so
it takes a bit of time for the JavaScript stack to start.
Yeah, exactly. So let me try just to get the API to see when it was. Okay, 23.
That's 4 minutes before.
Yeah, so maybe.
Or 5 minutes before, nearly.
Let's see whether it will respond or not. Yes, this one is up. Okay, so we can log in. Okay, so obviously the database customer is empty because nobody registered. But here I can see that I should have the list of my workshops at least. Okay, so I have all of them here. Okay.
So the database is really at the heart of the infrastructure. It stores all the information, all the metadata around the workshops, but also around the people registering, around the students' accounts, etc. So it's really something that we are creating from scratch in order to store the initial information we provide, and then it's a live system. So as Frederic will register to one workshop, you will see something happening on the database and some tables filling with more information linked to the operations.
And as Pramod has just joined, I mean, I didn't check when he joined, but he's now here, and I'd like to thank him again because he's the guy behind the front end and the API DB server. Is the one who developed this layer. So many thanks to you, Pramod, again for the great work you did. Obviously, as the open source project is a bit different from the HPE version, we needed to, I would say, remove some of the stuff that were part of the HPE version. So obviously you don't have any HPE banner at the top because this is the open source version. So it's branded open source, I would say. So there is no HPE logo, no HPE nothing that you would normally get if you go on hpe.com and on a developer.hpe.com page, I would say, where you get the Hack Shack and the workshops on demand. But we did some stripping around this, but still, it's the very same core functionalities in the end within the code itself. Now,
And in addition to that, the backend part and the API DB part are common between what HPE is using for its production systems and what we are using on the open source side of the project. So just the front end portal is different because you had much more features provided by your portal with the blogs, with documentation, articles, etc. on top of the workshops themselves. That's why we decided to split it, but we kept everything common at an API level so that we can replace very easily one portal by another without creating any issue.
could you elaborate, Bruno, on the private public side of the repos? I didn't mention it at the beginning, but just so that in the back end here, I was looking at the expansion of some of the workshops variable, and I could see some of them were private. So could you elaborate on this?
Yeah.
How we made it possible to have, an open source version plus some really private, IP type of related workshops and content?
Yeah, because when we open source a project, in the process of the OSRB, we wanted to release the code itself and the way the architecture, so the platform was working, but some of the content could be completely private to HPE because it calls some internals of HPE that HPE does not want to document outside, or it's linked to appliances or hardware components that are not available, that do not make sense to make public. So we architecture the stack in a way that you can have two repository, a public repository in which we are providing 20 notebooks already ready, which can give you a good set of examples that you can copy and derive for your own workshops if you want to add some, and a private zone where we are hosting those private information, those private notebooks. And in addition to that, we decided that we could also benefit from different way of deploying the systems, using private scripts as well during the installation. So the install scripts gives you the possibility to call private scripts in a private directory if you have one. And those scripts will be run after the public scripts, the open source one, in a way that can enhance the platform with additional configuration setup. That's really the idea which is behind. So private content, private scripts that allow you to perform some specific activities. Typically, when we are dealing with some notebooks calling a cloud infrastructure which is private to HPE, we have additional setup to perform on the cloud infrastructure, some account creations, maybe some LDAP related setup for accounts and stuff like that. Everything has been moved into a private part for HPE. And you can do the same using the platform. So that part is really in a private Git repo, which could be inside HPE walls, not necessarily outside. Or you could use a private GitHub repo if you want to host your information that you don't want to share with everybody on an open source level. And that's really easy to point to the different repository because we make it, we have a configuration file at install time that points to the various repos, but you can change the branches, you can change the link and point to another Git repository that is completely yours and on which you do exactly what you want and you do not publicly give access to.
So just looking at the chrono, and we're doing fine. I mean, I interrupted, so you might have seen me breaking some of the installation here on the backend. The reason why I did this is that we installed already the backend. So the very last part of the setup is really the configuration of all the different students that will be used on the Jupyter Hub server. And so we're doing several, paths of, I would say, configuration from the home directory rights and preventing the student from moving away from its own home directory, securing the environment really. And as we already did the setup of these machines on these VMs, I broke somehow the install here, but bear with me, the installation is complete. I mean, and the reason behind it is, well, the Jupyter Hub now is responding. So I will move on very quickly to a very short demo. So let's say that I want to register to the one and very first workshop that was created by Didier a few years back, I would say. So Frederic at wood dash backend dash 24
is it backend or backend one?
No, I think if you don't specify, it's
I don't remember which is the name of the.
No,
it's what backend. Okay, sorry, that's good.
If you don't specify, it's like this. Let me move this away. Dot local, okay. Frederic, hello. And this is a demo. Okay, so you agree with the terms and conditions. You register for the workshop. Okay, so hopefully now if we move back to here, and I need to move back this on the other side, we check the customer table now, and hopefully there should be, okay, here we go, a new entry in the table. Okay, and I should have been receiving now an email on my server. So if I go back to this one, yes, and if I launch mute, just for the sake of the demo, okay. So here I have received the first email that tells me about that I registered for the workshop. Okay, oops, Git. Now, if I want to be acting as the admin of the system and I want to check
you're not in the right directory. You need to do the tilde slash.
Okay. Okay, here is the trace of the deployment of the workshop, and I can see that the deployment went okay. So I can take the password here. If I'm going back here, if I refresh the page, I will see that now the last email sent is credentials. So if I was to go back to the very same machine that I was on, I think this one, and if I do Control T, please, oh. Control C.
Control C.
Control D, and I relaunch mute. Okay, now I should have another credentials. Okay, that's the email with the credentials. I also have the link to the workshop that I need to go through. So I'm student 1, and I'll be going to this machine. Okay, student 1. Okay, password. I'm signing in. Okay, so we'll be spawning the notebook on the Jupyter Hub server for the student that I was assigned to the workshop. So there is a one-to-many relationship between the workshops and the students, and we'll see this in the workshop table afterward. But really, so here's the workshop. Okay, that's the introduction. I need to go to lab 1. Okay, and I want to run now the workshop, so I can, simply play the different cells, so I can read the documentation in Markdown, as I said earlier on. And then I have this, bash command. So I'm running the bash kernel in the back end, and I'm running this command. So again, now I'm reading, and I'm doing another call on a publicly available API, which is an openmeteor.com API. And I think if we didn't change it, probably it's still taking Nice probably as the place where he's looking for the temperature, if I remember well. And that's it really. So you have here the very same thing. So I can go to the very end of the workshop. I can go to the conclusion. Oops, sorry, conclusion. And then there is a survey that I can fill, and I'm following the steps. So I need to log out. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I want to live. Okay, if I go back to this, so I wanted to show you a bit more details about the workshops table. And so here, the one that we were looking at is the API 101, okay? And actually this workshop is defined through a simple file that is actually, whenever you create a workshop, you need to create a file that will actually describe the workshop, and it will provide all the information about, the capacity of the workshop. So the number of students that will be allocated, or the maximum capacity it can take, the number of students it will have. In our case, in the open source, we limited it to 5 years. So from student 1 to student 6, I took the very first student. That's why I got allocated student 1. Where it will be deployed, on which backend, and then some other information, whether there is a replay, and some other stuff, the category, an alternate location. So that's something that we would like to build up later on some kind of HA type of approach, where if we would able to monitor the availability of every given workshop or every given Jupyter Hub, the alternate location, if somebody goes wrong on the first one, would somehow allow the deployment on another Jupyter Hub. But it's there, but it's for future usage, should I say. Now, going back to the presentation, and I would like probably Bruno to take over on this, because we'll be talking a bit more about the details of the communication and the architecture. So, Bruno, I leave it to you now.
Yeah, so as you have seen, we have deployed multiple systems which each has its own role. The backend systems are hosting the Jupyter Hub and the Word templates, so all the content of the notebooks which are instantiated when you register. So as Frederic showed to you, you register on the portal, which is one of the repository mentioned here. And this triggers a certain number of communication with the HPE DB. The API server uses the DB to register the information linked to the registration, and it launches email to the backend. Why is it not a REST API as we have between the front end and the API DB? It's because we had some security constraints, and the only way to pass through a certain number of difficult security constraints from a network perspective was to use a mail, because the mail infrastructure always goes through, whereas some direct HTTP connections cannot be done, especially entering into the HPE network, but that could be true from other structures implementing the solution. So we send emails to the backend, and the backend will use a procmail tool to look at the requests that you have coming from the API DB server, and will start instantiating the notebooks templates that are hosted on the backend to create in the student allocated to the customer requesting the workshop. It will first clean up the student directory, then instantiate in the student directory everything related to the workshop which has been booked. So the API 101 workshop that Frederic shown to you is in fact contains on our side a certain number of information which are written and also some Ansible variables that are expanded during the creation of the environment for that student on the directory. What I say for the instantiation of some files can go up to creating a Docker container for that user on an appliance server somewhere else in our infrastructure, creating the user account, setting up the password, making the SSH key exchanges, etc., so that when the users, the customer, log on the Jupyter Hub, it will interact with the right environment. And how to set up the right environment is the role of a certain number of scripts that we have developed for hosting the different type of infrastructures that we can have to deploy to answer to the different type of API and systems that we want to demonstrate to the customer. So that is really the heart of the project. Then you have a certain number of other communications happening to one, the API DB when the workshop is really deployed. You have seen that we are changing the status of the mail sent from welcome, which is the initial one, to credential, and then it can go into different phases when we reach the end of the workshop, and that we ask the customer to finish. We send a mail that you will receive saying there is 1 hour left before the end of the workshop. And then we send a last mail saying the workshop is over. We hope that you backed up everything so that you can replay it on your side if you want. And all those mails sent are received also by the API server, either through API calls or through mail communication, and stored in the database so that we can see the evolution. And also it's a nice tool for us to observe when we have issues, what is the current status of the different fields in the database so that we can do some forensic activity on top of the problems we have. So really, this is the communication between those three bricks: front end, which is the interaction with the user; API DB, which perform the heart of the actions through the REST API, storing the different evolution of the status of the workshop life cycle on the DB server, and all these bricks communicating with the backend servers, because there may be more than one. Here we just picture one, but you may have different backend servers because you may have different type of appliances. For example, if you have a storage system, you want to show API for a storage system. Not all our backend servers are linked to that storage system, so they cannot all be able to perform the workshops. That's what we had the need to be able to support multiple backends. Frederic, did I cover what you wanted to?
Yeah. I just wanted to take over very quickly and show people also one scenario that I didn't mention earlier on, which is updating the environment. So as you can see here, we have the catalog. Okay, now let's say that you want to update an existing workshop. Okay, so you could go in the database and edit the fields. Okay, that's one way of doing it. But somehow we'd rather not touch this UI anymore, and rather have I explained that we have one very important file for any given workshop, which is the
what.yaml.
Exactly, this what.yaml file. So let me switch as an admin first.
Yeah, that was correct. No, there is a space after
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
So now, if I go on this peculiar folder, which is the one hosting all the different notebooks, okay, if I do an ls, you will see that there are plenty of them. I can see that I have this workshop API 101, the one that I did earlier on. Okay, so if I go in there, I will see that there is a what.yaml file. Okay, and this YAML file is the one that is used by the installer to feed the database with the different workshops that are present in the directory. So it reads out all the information in the YAML file and translate them into information that the database will host. So let's say that I want to change, for instance, the title. So if I go on API 101 and I said it becomes, let's say, API 201, and instead of basics, it will be advanced. just for the sake of the demo. Okay, so I write. So I do this here in this way, but the proper way of doing it is that we're doing some git remote git update, and you will do a git remote update and you will change the things. And then what you will need to do is actually move back to the Word API folder, okay, on the scripts, and in there you will find a very important script that is word.update db.sh. And if you run this one, okay, what will happen is that, okay, need to go back here, and if I refresh, and if I go at the very top, okay, you see that it's become API 2.1. And magically, as the front end is interrogating, also is querying the database. If I'm refreshing this one, obviously, oops, oh yeah, as usual, when you're doing an update and you're changing the thing, you need to look for 2.1. Okay, and next one, because there are several of them. Okay, so that's not the one. And you will see, where is it? Yeah, API 201. Okay, so I updated this one. Now let's say that I want to create a new one. Okay, very same process. So I go back to the API DB server and I go back to the Word.notebooks folder. Okay. Let's say that I'm going to do a CP-A of workshop, workshop API 101 into space, that'll be better. Workshop API, too much. API 301. Okay, now if I go in there, whoops, workshops, API 301. I did the word.yaml, okay. And I'm going to change this to 3. It's going to be now super advanced. Super, so advanced. And description will be blah, 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 blah. Okay, now I have a new workshop, okay, so I need to update the database, so I'll go back to the very same folder I was in previously. Whoops, scripts. Okay, and I want to call back the very same, whoops, what was it? Yeah, this one. It's quite quick. Okay, so now if I go back here and I refresh, okay, I should be looking for 301. And guess what? I have now a super advanced API 301. And if I look at the database, same goes. I mean, I would go back to the workshop table, select data, and look at the very bottom of the list. Okay, whoops. And I have an API 301. Okay, so you see, I mean, we try to make it fairly easy to manage the environment. I mean, in terms of content, obviously creating the content is quite some work. I mean, depending on the amount of API endpoint you need to manage. I mean, if you're doing, a simple Python course, obviously the kernel that are provided by the Jupyter Hub will be enough for your course. Okay, same goes for Ansible or Java or Kotlin or whatever type of programming language you would like to use. But when it comes to something that is more infrastructure related, I mean, you have some simulators sometimes for some storage part. François Donzet, who in the Compute BU managed to create some simulators for ILO, but you cannot always have a simulator. So if you have proper hardware to connect to, well, then you have to build up and configure properly for each student and so on and so forth. So this is where you'll have some limitation and some hard work possibly to achieve. So going back to the slides, and we're reaching the very end of the session. So if there are some questions, I mean, we'll still have 5 minutes left and we'll be very, very happy to answer them. So if you have a few questions, shout out right now, or not, then we'll wait and we'll wait for if you can ask in the Q&A or you can speak up. I mean, use the Q&A and we'll relay them if needed. We think it's a good tool. It's a really good tool for really creating some training content. Uh, Obviously, if you need to have some web UI related activity, I mean, web consoles based training, that's not necessarily the premium tool, but you can use it if you want. It's still feasible. The really good thing is the ability to really embed the documentation on the very same page as your script and code. So, I mean, you've been doing Kubernetes 101, Bruno created the Docker 101. For this kind of technology is just spot on, I believe. I mean, there used to be a CSI driver, and I think it was one of the very heavily used workshop over time. It needs to be re-updated, unfortunately. But that's the reason why we also need the community. I mean, as the members of the original community, I would say, decrease, we really need to expand on the support from the community itself for helping us out in building up some content, maintaining some environments if needed. We're reaching out to you really today, not only to promote the program, but really also to ask for your support because we believe this is a really important asset, and I mean, you can use it, but you can, or you can build your own. You can help us improve on this one. I'm pretty sure that there is room for improvement. We're not. I mean, Pramod is the only developer. Oh, I mean, Bruno is also a developer. Sorry, that's not what I meant. But when it comes to, I would say, things like in the front end or the API, I think that we would welcome anyone, I would say, and the more the merrier. So, as any open source project, I mean, yeah, that's the community who makes it. Bruno, you wanted to add something?
No, it's you're right. I think it's a very good tool to help knowledge transfer. Um, we are welcoming patches on the projects themselves, but of course also on the content, because
Yeah.
currently we only have 20 open source notebooks. We could have more. And on the HPE side, so you have seen in the workshop tables there was the private part which was added because you had 47 workshops proposed.
I'll be interrupting
So
you very quickly. Just
yeah,
I would thank Mathieu for bringing up the end poll, end of session poll. So if you can take just a minute to before leaving to answer the poll, I will really appreciate it. You think it was a good use of your time, the technical level of the session, and if you would recommend meetups, and we hope you will do, obviously. Sorry, but I just needed to do this very last item
yeah.
before. So go on with your comment. I mean, I totally
No,
agree with you. So
I mean, we welcome patches both on the code itself. If you look at it, is there stuff we have not presented in terms of network architecture? We are much more uh, uh, flexible than what was showed because you could have external IP address, internal IP address, depending on your network infrastructure. And that was our case sometimes in different environments where we were running the platform. There are you've seen the update of the database. There are more stuff to say about it because you have fields which are managed by the word.yml file and other fields which are managed on the fly by the infrastructure, and we are taking care of there is no collision between those two sets of information, etc., etc. And again, if you have a good idea on a tool that you would like to document and that could be hosted by our platform, contact Frederic, myself, and we will be happy to integrate those content in our environment and promote it as well as part of the platform.
exactly. And I think we're reaching the top of the hour. So I can't see it. Oh, yeah, there is one question. So, do the workshop only appear on the abstract, or can you set this up to be specific to your own project? So it's a question from Ria. So, well, there is I mean, the workshops on demand is originally an HPE project and is part of the developer community assets. So it still lives in the hpe.com on the developer.hpe.com website. And but the purpose of the session was really to allow you to build up your own infrastructure. It could be within HP internally with no external access, as it is for the Hack Shack, or I mean, or outside of HPE for any people in the world who's willing to create a similar type of a training facility in their company, in a university or wherever. So the point is really to make it available. That's the reason why we open sourced it as well. Really, the idea was to make it not only available in HPE, but also outside and for everyone to use it on its own. So the answer to you is really, there is currently there's only one version, which is the HPE one, but nothing prevents anybody from building up its own, I would say. I could have my own, I have a small machine under my desk, and I could actually build up the 3 VMs and have it running under my own, private environment if I wanted to. And as you can see, we demonstrated that within less than an hour, that's something that you can bring up. So that's the point, the whole point of the thing. It's not only is it really cool to use, but it's very easy to install, I believe. Hope that
It's even easier if you look in the install directory. You will see scripts called virt-lightning. This is an additional project I'm using, which builds the VM on the fly. So it's like a sort of mini Vagrant type of environment. You build the VMs based on Ubuntu 24.04, and then it does all the rest for you automatically. So it's the tool I use for regressions typically. So it's really quick to have your 3 VMs running on your platform. And you don't need a lot of resources. If you allocate 2 gigs per VM, it's sufficient to work.
Yeah. Well, last slide, really the additional resources. So you have some links to the project itself, obviously the developer community portal, the different blogs that I wrote over the years. We participated to different type of open source events where we presented either the prop mail API or the project itself. And we'll be presenting again this year in Alpo SS 25. But really, these are the links that you can have. The presentation will be made available on the Meetup page of the developer community. Thank you all for your time, and see you next time in January for the Mention Learn. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.